Welcome to the OERizona podcast. I'm Nathan Klein, coming to you from Eastern Arizona College in Thatcher campus. We have Eric Osborn with us today. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Nathan, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Eric, you're coming to us from Bullhead City?
From Bullhead City, the Mojave Community College.
Well, fantastic. Well, we're going to talk to Eric today about OER, and he has tons of experience with OER, and I'm super excited to interview you, Eric. I've told you before, but the first time I had the opportunity to think about who I was going to interview, you were the very, very first person to come to my mind for this podcast.
That's very kind.
So tell us a little bit about your background, how you became interested in OER or open educational materials.
Teaching for a while, and you get to experience different styles as you go throughout education. And you see that some students gravitate towards professors who are just more real, more authentic. And I noticed that occurs more so when people deliver their own materials. And instead of sterile kind of, here's a package to teach kind of situation. And so I kind of gravitated towards that. And I wanted to make sure that my students had as an enjoyable experience as possible. And so I just brought me to the course. And I started designing everything. And then eventually that turned into, found quality in what I made. And so I gave it to them. And then we turned into this OER kind of machine, turning out OERs over and over again.
Oh, great. Well, you have put out a lot of things. I've seen quite a bit of it in the biology world and super excited about it. Let's jump to, when you're creating an OER, there's got to be some kind of process that you're going through. And so walk us through the process of starting with a topic, what inspires you about that topic, and then going into creating an open educational resource.
Conversation with some of my colleagues that the way I approach things might be a little different than most. Some people always try to find the positive in things, and I always try to find the fault. So I think that's the way that I go about creating new materials, is I try to view it from the standpoint of a student. And if the student seems to have trouble with a certain topic or hands-on experience, how can we make this better for them? And so I keep finding, if I make something and I find the little mistake in it or a little fault in it or something that doesn't seem genuine to the educational experience for that particular student, then that's where I try to devote my time. And I try to rewrite, tweak, and change as much as possible. And then when I started doing that for a while, I got into that mindset of, when I was a student, how would I want my instructors to act? And so I started bringing more of that voice, not my teacher voice, but my student voice, into that build with the teacher background. And so that's how I start the projects, is to make sure that I always put the student first, and I can hear the student's voice or the way a student would understand something in that material.
Yeah, finding the weak link, it's always interesting. I can identify with that.
Always. There's always something that you want to pick at.
Yep, for sure. So that's kind of how you get started. What are some steps you go through as you go through the process, and maybe even share an example with us of that process?
For instance, one of the more recent ones that came out is my anatomy physiology manual. Not necessarily groundbreaking work that's come out. It's not anything necessarily new, but it is primarily looking at how the students are physically hands-on involved in their education, to make sure that as a lay individual coming into the situation, if I were to then perform some of these experiments inside of a class, the write up, instead of using the jargon that we typically use within science, use a simpler tone, a more friendly tone, uh, more human speak. Then progressing from there onto the next step. What do these things mean? How can we potentially even investigate beyond the material? I need to make sure that everything is understandable to every level. But the problem is that I'm me, and so it's hard for me to sometimes find the right level of rigor within the writing. And so I students, I'm like, I'm going to use you guys as guinea pigs. New York just came out there, use guys. Sorry about that. And so, and I test my labs or my materials on them. And then, because if anyone's going to find a mistake in what an instructor did, it's a student. So they go through it, and then I rewrite it, and then I hand it over to one of my colleagues to make sure that it looks good, and making sure that there's a review in there that is not just me spouting whatever crazy nonsense that I came up with, to make sure that it's actually a quality product. When you get down to it, the actual writing process is it's what I was taught when I first started writing within the sciences, is you just sit down and you write. Don't worry about polishing it up. Just sit down and write. And then go through, make sure that each of those points that I just made, make sure that everything is cleaned up and clear and presentable. And it takes forever to do that second part. The first part, you can crank out a lab manual without a problem, but making sure that it's good, that's the part that takes forever. Of course, trying to bring in one of the biggest challenges, looking at graphics and other stuff, trying to bring in those aspects of it so it's more presentable and the students want to interact with it.
Well, one thing I remember you telling me on another occasion was that whenever you have open moments, your mind is kind of on the topic, and you write whenever you have a free moment, whether it's in the middle of the night or not.
Much true, because this isn't the job. This isn't what we're actually paid to do. We're paid to teach. We're paid to be that resource for the students, and this is more of a fascination, like a side project. But sometimes it feels consuming because you really are into it. You really want to make it happen. And you have to balance the work side of it. And I have the family, and we try to do as many cool things with the family as possible. But then when we're not, if I'm not actively engaged with them, then I'm writing. There's many times in which I'm literally just sitting on the couch and I'm writing out the manuals. And my daughters, they don't know what I'm writing. They're young. They just kind of lean against me and just sit there and stare, and which is nice. But then you wake up in the middle of the night, can't go back to sleep. I got nothing else to do. I just break up my laptop, sit in bed, and I keep on going. It's a lengthy, lengthy process. It really is.
Well, I find that inspiring. Actually, after you mentioned that last time we talked, I found myself thinking, oh, I should be writing my OER.
See, that's
So
the dangerous thing, is that because everyone works differently, and when they're like, oh no, that person, they're doing this, I'm weird. And so I really don't want to play any kind of comparison games, because other people, they actually have a social life. I really don't.
Well, it helped me. I finished 2 this week, so thank you for
That's
the
awesome.
inspiration. So anyway, so we've talked about the steps, how you get started, inspiration. Tell us a little about some challenges that you might face doing OERs.
So that time, that one is the biggest one, honestly, making sure that you can find the time to do it in, because we're all so busy. We're teaching a full load, if not overload teaching, because that's just what students need. Make time for the things that you dedicated towards. That's always going to be the case. The next biggest challenge that I've had is graphics. And any OER author that I've talked to, this is the same thing. Unless you have a dedicated graphics person, whew, it's challenging. I wish we had a dedicated scientific illustrator. Uh, there is, with this birth of like AI generated images, I'm like, oh, can we make some? And they're spitting off things like 3, 4 legs. I'm like, this isn't a human anymore. Like, I don't know what this is. And so it's challenging in that respect. My lab tech that I have on campus in Bullhead here, fantastic individual. Angel Soto is amazing. Used him in a lot of and all of my manuals actually. If there's ever a model in one of my manuals, it's me taking pictures of him. And so I have him acting as a chemistry student. I have him acting as a biology student and demonstrating the protocols. But when you get into things like AMP, that becomes a bit more difficult because I really don't want to skin them. And we need to see different images. So I've used like Wikimedia, Wiki Images, find anything that is open sourced that I can, and of course giving proper accreditations to those who dabbled in a little creation of images myself, but I am not very good. And so that's one of the big challenges. This is actually something that I've thought about in the past, but I never actually realized that students think about this until I was in a meeting not that long ago. We were in a meeting and it was a student-led panel. They were giving feedback to the college. And they were saying that some of the OERs, not in the sciences that they were talking about, but some of the OERs that other fields were using, they're out of date. They don't have the proper information for what the course needs at the time. Some of the information was 10 years old. And so I never thought that students were catching on to some of the things that might be out of date. And so that's really lit a fire under me to make new editions. So now I'm on the second, third editions of some of my manuals, or changing up some of my other OERs, because they're paying attention. If you think so or not, students are paying attention, and we really owe it to them, because they're the reason why we're doing this in the first place. We really owe it to them to give them an updated quality product.
Oh, that's great. And I love the fact that we can make new additions basically whenever we want.
Whenever.
With OER. That's the best part. So you mentioned students, and obviously you're getting some feedback. So how have they responded to the fact that the author of their text is their teacher? And have you noticed changes in how the students learn?
There's an interesting story here, is that a lot of the stuff that I've been making, or any of the materials myself, I honestly don't even try to take credit for anything that I make. I just give it out to anyone who wants it. And so a lot of the other instructors are using my materials. And so I had a student, actually quite a few students throughout the semesters, who, when they first enter the course, the first week of the course, they're going through all the materials and like, oh, it's nice that you're using the same stuff as this other person because it's a subsequent course. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know they were actually using it at the time. I'm like, oh, that's very nice that we all share the same materials. So a lot of them might not even realize that I wrote the materials. That I hope they appreciate when they're using the OER materials that I did create is that voice stays the same. The lecture, the lab, the questions, the manuals, everything, it all follows the same intonations, because when we start pulling and picking from different locations, it can easily become a kind of patchwork course in which students might not dots between the different concepts, even if they're the same topic. So hopefully they appreciate that. when we do it. But I run a very open, honest class. So students are very with their feedback with me, if they like it or not. And so there are some times in which this was the worst thing I've ever done in my life. And I'm like, that's fantastic. I apologize. I will fix it. And because we have, and I said, we can update anytime, and we have that ability to fix it. Most of the time, though, the students do seem appreciative of having a no-cost solution that is high quality and, like I said, stays with the voice.
Well, that's great, and I can echo some of those sentiments. So you mentioned that the faculty around you are using your OERs, and you've had, obviously they must like it if they're using it, and so
I don't know if they like it.
That kind of brings me to this idea of collaboration, not only just within your institution, but across institutions. And we've had a few instances where we've been able to collaborate. Tell me what's your thoughts on the future of OER development when it comes to collaborating with your colleagues in your institution and across the state?
Our department here at Mojave Community College, we have developed a really great team. We've compiled some fantastic individuals, and they are dedicated to their field. They are dedicated to their students, and it shows. And so it's really not that hard. We are completely OER in the life sciences, and new adaptations, new adoptions, new creations, anything that is going to happen, our department's on top of it. They're a really great group. And we did have a project that our biology 181 courses, our general biology courses, we had 3, 4, 5 different faculty working all together to create a set of manuals, questions, resources that would be open for common use. And they did a really good job at putting that together. And because I'm kind of a solo person, I like to work on my own time. I like to do my stuff, but I can't imagine how much effort they had to put into that in order to create it. It was fantastic. One of the projects I worked on recently, now I say recently, a couple of years ago, however, was not my specialty. I worked on a chemistry project. I just couldn't get everything exactly right because I don't teach the chemistries. I have some background in my education, quite a bit of background in my education in chemistry, but not teaching it. But we needed to make something. I actually reached out across the state to Gino out at Yavapai, and great chemistry professor there. And was awesome. He said, here's my course, here's my resources, and you're free to use any of it that you want. And this OER thing is a lot easier than I thought. These people are super nice. Repeated that process. I went to all the other colleges with the chemistry departments. I asked them, hey, what do we need to work on? What kind of help can you provide? And they gave me information. They gave me their outcomes that they're trying to reach. And I think we got something that comes pretty close. So that was a really nice instance. Because if it's one thing I've learned, OER people are just the nicest, out there for themselves. None of them are trying to make money on any of this. They're just out there because they love doing it. And I hope, when you say looking at the future, I hope that's what everything becomes. Everyone just becomes this freely giving, open kind of community in which you need something. It might be last minute. It might be a course you've never taught before and you just got hired at a new place. Do you know what? We have every material for you and we were happy to give it to you. I hope that becomes what OER is. This is the student cost issue. It also brings in a great collaborative effort across the community.
Fabulous. I agree. So just one or two closing thoughts here or questions for you. Do you have anything in the pipeline coming down the pipeline that would be like to share?
I
We
have
can
been a
look
bit
forward to.
neglectful, spending the last year writing a microbiology book, a lab manual that then fits in with my courses. Well, fits in with, it should fit in with most courses across the state. But I tweaked it because I had a new idea. And of course, there's always something new you want to try. I put in a cure into the manual. Cure is a undergraduate research experience so that the students have the understanding and the opportunity to experience research, but built into the course so that we don't have to hire them as a part-time or as something else and to go and do something, work in someone's lab, but just built into the course, the students can feel what research actually is. We've been working on some really nice, cool projects in which we've been trying to get. I'm trying to encourage some students to write little mini grants so that they can get that experience as well. But we built it into the micro manual that I'm writing, and that should have been released a month ago, but it's always the images, and so
Yes.
dragging my feet on that. But yes, there is more coming up, and I do have more already planned, just so that I can flush it all out.
Oh, awesome. So let's wrap this up by giving you the opportunity to give advice to maybe faculty members who are pondering the opportunity to do their own OER material, and just any other closing comments you'd like to share.
I would say just listen to your students. Your students are going to give you the best feedback. And if they're not telling you, they're telling somebody else. And so go talk to people. Go feel out what is needed within either your courses, your departments, and be an active participant. It doesn't mean that you have to take everything on yourself. Like I said, we have a great team here, and we worked very collaboratively, and they came up with a very nice biology project. But you can. You're not alone in this process. There are other people there for you. And there are going to be hiccups all the time. There's going to be little barriers along the way that you have to overcome, which honestly are kind of fun sometimes. For me, we had a problem with our LMS. It wasn't working with my images quite right. And so I just made a new website. And I can point my students to that website in order to make sure that you get a consistent viewing of the protocols, of the lectures, of whatever you're looking for, so they're not being altered by, say, the LMS. Hope happens. And of course, I'm a utopiaist, and I know it's not going to happen, but what I hope happens, faculty take their courses back. So we gave permission to the publishers to own our courses. Expert, you're the one that we hired, the one that we put into that spot. Well, you're the one we trust, that we take our classrooms back so that students can love the experience, that it's authentic, that they can feel that. This turns into, it's kind of a story of the past, but a case in which the classroom lived or died on their faculty. And this is going to encourage everyone to bring in great faculty, to give them the support that they need so that we can then generate a new generation of students who are inquisitive, want to learn, those who think in different ways. And this only occurs with faculty involvement. OER becomes. I hope it becomes something great and something that not just faculty but students can both take ownership of. Utopiast, but we'll see what happens.
Well, thank you, Eric. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'll give him, see if it'll work here, a round of applause. There we go. I love the toys. Anyway, so yeah, definitely thank you. Where are they going to find your materials?
Materials are going to be in the OERizona hub on OER Commons. So you can go there, find all the materials that you need. There are a lot of great authors there. I'm not one of them. I'm just a little one. So, uh, but I did make that website. It's edusci.us, edusci.us. Little makeshift games, courses, manuals, and it's going to be a living, breathing thing that continually gets changed and added to.
So edusci.us. And on OER Commons is it all under the the Arizona network
It
or?
should be, yes.
Okay, great. So if you want more information, feel free to go to the OERizona.org. You will find our other podcasts listed there, and all things Eric Osborn as well. So it'll link you to the OER Commons website, and you can find his stuff there. Again, thank you very much for your time today, Eric.
Thank you, Nathan.
And
This is fun. I always like talking to you.
thank you. All right, so we'll talk to everyone later.